So I've just come back from interviewing artist Jed Franklin for Sidcot Art Centre. Jed's a locally based contemporary painter who's exhibited widely, and he's got an exhibition of brand new works that he's created especially for this Sidcot exhibition, which opens here this Saturday, the 25th of May. So I caught up with him as he began to hang his exhibition. Hi Jed.
Hi.
I wonder if you can give us a brief insight into why the exhibition is called Lost and Found and what people can expect to see from your new show.
Okay, so a title. You've always got to find something that's going to captivate people and bring people into a show thinking. It started out by having a couple of pieces selected by Ross, the head of art. He really wanted these car bonnets in the show. They're found objects, given a new lease of life, gone from a lost scrap to something found and cherished, hopefully.
Where did you find them?
I live down the road, and there's a scrap metal place, and I went down there. I asked. They had some lying around, so I took them away, and they were quite curious to what I had in mind. But yeah, I think the result sort of speaks for itself in many ways.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I've been to your studio before, which was also open for Arts Week recently. How do you go about preparing your shows? I mean, when you turn up and see a space, do you already have in mind how it's going to be laid out, or do you do it on the day? Or you're laughing there, maybe
Yeah.
it's a bit less preparation.
I mean, for a space as large as this, it's hard to totally visualise everything and how it's going to place. I came into this show thinking it needed to have space around it to think about how things were lost and found, or whether it is a matter of finding the pieces of art as you move around, how it approaches you. These different collections that have come together to form this show, I had in essence thought about that more than how I placed them within the space. And as I've turned up today, I've looked at the space again, having hung a massive collection here before for North Set Arts. It was quite different than hanging just my work and having space.
Is it more difficult then to hang your own, or is it?
Well, sometimes you're slightly more critical of what you're doing. It's also about style of hanging. Clearly, I'm not doing a salon hang where it's put everything you can possibly fit into one space. It's more of a contemporary gallery space or a museum show where you move around. The journey is as important as the observation of the work, and hopefully people will use the space in between each piece to reflect upon what they've seen or what it's evoked in themselves.
Okay. So have you created any works specifically for this show?
Yeah, I have. One particular collection, I totally envisaged it for this Lost and Found. The story is, I was sat in my studio, I was looking around trying to feel inspired by the words of Lost and Found, and my process of working is I have small palettes, and as they dry out I put them to one side and I start a new one. And I had a large stack of these unused, unloved pieces of tat, really. And I was like, they're lost. They're something that they had all the makings and the aspirations to be something beautiful in a finished painting, and they've never been there. So I formulated a piece of work, a collection called What I Could Have Been. And it starts from a stack of palettes to a few that I selected and I drew on top of when I've painted. And then I went to my framer, and I consulted with him, and I gave him free rein to be creative and make frames that are lost and found as well.
Right, okay.
So the journey, hopefully you'll come and see this, is from a lost pile of card covered in paint to suddenly becoming something cherished, loved and created and finished.
Excellent. You've been an active committee member for North Somerset Arts Organisation and a participant of Arts Week from the very start, and you exhibit very widely, obviously, in and around North Somerset and beyond. What's the single biggest change, in your opinion, that you'd like to see to the arts scene in this area?
Ooh, that's kind of a large question. The art scene, I mean, it's massive in terms of there are so many participating artists and creatives within this area and sprawling out beyond North Somerset, Bristol, Bath, Exeter, Somerset, and in some ways maybe we're our own worst enemy because there are so many of us. We're all striving for the same things, but in many ways that's positive. You know, we feed off of each other, what we see, what we learn about. I think I'd like to see the economy grow again so that people want to invest in art and believe that buying a quality piece of art is an investment. But at the same time, I don't want people buying art just because it seems like a good commodity. I want people to love the art that they buy, you know, and that's the full stop on the end of any buyer, really, I believe.
So do you think there's a struggle to also find, you know, quality outlets and venues for artists in this area?
I don't think it's a struggle to find quality. There are some fantastic galleries and exhibition spaces, one of which is here. But I think the big struggle is getting gallerists to take you on board as a new artist, a developing artist, in a time when they've got an outlay. And if they know that they're taking on artists that sell rapidly, that their turnover is going to be productive, whereas you take on new up-and-comings that you may love their work, however you don't know if someone else is going to, and that doesn't bring in the bills paid. Yeah. So that's a big stopping point for many young artists or any creators out there at the moment.
I know you'll be stewarding part of your exhibition here at Sidcot Art Centre, but you'll also be having a Meet the Artist slot, which is booked on Tuesday the 4th of June. Yeah. Could you just give us a very kind of brief summary of what people can expect you to be talking about? Okay,
so part of what I'll talk about is what I do. You know, I'm a painter formally, and I will talk about what I do, how I do it, what interests me, and that kind of feeds back into when you're getting into art, what you should do. I believe you should create and paint what you enjoy, because you kind of have a little love affair with every piece that you do, and if you're doing work that you don't enjoy, it's not going to come out as your best. Okay. Going back to what I'll be talking about what the themes are, how they kind of fit into this show, and trying to explain the meaning of everything.
So have you got any kind of hints and tips for people starting out when they're hanging their exhibitions? It's quite a skill. Have you got any tips that you can share with us, or a golden nugget?
I think hanging, that, you know, people go to university, they do masters in curatorship. It is a skill, it's a talent. And knowing how your work will best suit a space, best work on which wall, is sometimes a bit of a gamble. As may have been witnessed this morning. But at the same time, there are different styles of hanging. I remember being at university and we had an ongoing joke that there was an international hanging height. There is no such thing. However, what always seemed to be a point was you want the centre of interest to be about eye height. And, you know, as long as you stick around that, people can walk. However, that doesn't cater for when children come in. Then there's a salon hang where it is literally, comes from sort of the Parisian days where they would literally put on a show where it was as much art would go into the gallery as possible, and it would be everywhere. See that today, still in Paris, all over the world, and very much so summer exhibition at the Royal Academy. Fill the walls.
Fill the walls.
That's what they do.
That's your advice.
And then what I've done for this show and what I tended to do really for my open studios was I selected what was going to be in, I took away everything that wasn't, and I gave pieces space, whether that's for them to breathe and for you to view them on their own, or whether it's just an aesthetic thing that you feel that works best. But mainly, be confident in your artwork and believe that it can shine for itself.
Who do you most respect as an artist, and why?
Okay, there's a few. In this area, I really respect a fantastic painter called Les Matthews. I think he's taught here before. He used to be my head of art at Churchill School, and he believed in me and nurtured my love of art to make me an artist. So I don't just respect him in terms of what he does. His paintings are outstanding, they speak for themselves. But as a person, as a mentor, he's very inspiring. And then beyond that, I love sort of American pop painters like James Rosenquist, just someone that can paint a very realistic painting but on a vast scale beyond anyone's realms of reality, and beautiful sort of colour, texture, came from a background of sign painting on billboards in Times Square. Realised got a bit of a skill, why not make a bit more money, and I totally respect that as well. So there are several artists out there. Someone that I follow quite a bit at the moment, being a portrait painter, I observe other portrait painters. A guy a little bit older than me, Nathan Ford, he regularly shows in Bath, Beaux-Arts. He's been in many portrait shows, fantastic. If you're interested in portraiture, really do have a look.
So I happen to know that you're a family man these days. Has this influenced the way you work or the things that you produce, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think any artist doesn't reflect upon their life and their social circumstances. And when you go from being a student with a girlfriend to being a husband with a wife and a job, that changes. Because you go from having friends that model for you to having a wife that models for you. And then when you become a dad, your interest is kind of slightly skewed, that your world becomes about that little entity that grows and grows and grows. And just the other week, my wife, bless her, came into the studio and went, I see the tides have changed. I used to be the muse and now someone else is. And it was quite clear there was one painting in the studio that has my wife in it, doesn't even have a face in, and there were 5 paintings of my daughter. So, you know, I might have to sway the balance again at a later point. But yeah, definitely, it changes how you look at things and your priorities. And, sometimes it changes the sort of work that you're interested in as well. And, but you work in cycles, it will come back around and you do different things.
So, following your work with young offenders, is there anything you took from them in particular and then later appeared in your works or your thoughts?
Well, I think, you know, you work with these young people that maybe haven't had the best start in their lives, and that's not to say that what they've done is right or wrong. Generally it's wrong, but you know, sometimes you see a little chink of light, and it makes you feel rewarded that you've had some sort of element to play in that. And you know, I'm going to admit that a lot of their work isn't of the upper echelons of the art world, but what they do is they find things very interesting. They love things that are created to look like what it is. They're very opinionated. So you you learn to draw very accurately. You paint quickly, but to a style, and they appreciate that. And you try and push them into a mould, a direction to do that. And you know, they enjoy it in most facets. Occasionally they don't enjoy art because they're scared to fail. And unfortunately in art, sometimes you've got to be willing to make a mistake, to strive to get to where you want to be. In terms of taking from them and creating, what I have done is I found bits of wood, part of this lost and found, that they had scrawled on or splattered paint on in a kind of rage of getting out, release. And sometimes, as an artist, you find it very hard to get a really expressive feeling out in a patina of colours, or I do. I'm far too precise for my own good, to be honest. But to find something like that, and then I used it, and I looked at it, and I've worked on top of it, so it's kind of using the found element and their creativity or their need to express themselves and working on top. But I'll leave the rest of how they've come together for you to come and have a look at.
So, and finally, a bit of a random question. Red or black?
For me, probably black, because you can always get a little bit of purple that blends into it, and that's kind of important. But then I suppose you might need the red to make the black a bit more purple.
Spoken like a true artist. Thanks, Jed. That's Jed Franklin. Thank you. Jed's show starts at Sidcot Arts Centre on Saturday the 25th of May and runs through until Saturday the 8th of June. You can catch him on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays, 10 till 4 for the duration. And you can also meet him at his talk, which is on Tuesday the 4th of June at 9:30 AM. And both the exhibition and the talk is free to attend.